Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. It's Paulie Esther here, and today we're going to talk about Stranger Things and Dead by Daylight and those rumors that you may have seen circulating about a return of the Stranger Things license to Dead by Daylight. Buckle up. So first I want to talk about my own impressions. I found it very strange that the anniversary chapter this year was an original after 3 years in a row of having a licensed property. Seems like this is one of the flagship moments for Dead by Daylight, trotting out Ghostface and then Silent Hill and then Resident Evil 3 years in a row. So I was fully expecting that this anniversary chapter was going to be licensed as well. And as I saw the dredge, I looked at the design and I remarked to myself about how reminiscent it was of what you may have heard referred to as the Flayed or the hospital monster from Stranger Things Season 3. And I thought to myself, wow, what if this was supposed to be a Stranger Things chapter part 2 and it never got made because Netflix pulled out of the licensing deal with them? And at first you might think, well, wait a minute, how is that possible that this was supposed to be a Stranger Things chapter? They found out that they were losing the license to Stranger Things back last August. How does that affect a chapter that's coming out in June now the next year? Well, remember, they work on these chapters a full year in advance sometimes. And Dead by Daylight is no stranger to doing sequels to chapters. We saw the Oni chapter as a sequel to The Spirit, and we know that Project W is going to be a sequel to the Resident Evil chapter. So it's entirely possible that this was always meant to be Stranger Things Part 2, and then they had to shift gears and turn this into their own original design off the cuff when the licensing was not renewed. Now, the presumption has always been that Netflix is the partner that chose not to renew the agreement after 2 years, wanting to go in a different direction, developing their own video game studio, so they declined to renew the license with Dead by Daylight. But up until that point, we know from our Dead by Daylight devs that they had a very good relationship with Netflix and they're very good to work with, and they were even allowed to look behind the curtain before Season 3 came out in order to create content for the DLC. So it's very likely that Dead by Daylight may have even had some advanced information about Season 4 before the license got canceled. And I think the Garden of Joy kind of bears that out, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But you might think, well, wait a minute, Stranger Things just came out now. How did Dead by Daylight know about Stranger Things before they lost the license? Well, Stranger Things actually started to film in February 2020. They had to postpone for COVID, but then they resumed in September 2020. So all of this plot would have been written and perhaps even shared with Dead by Daylight for future plans, remembering that Dead by Daylight didn't actually get the word, or announced to us at least, that the license was not being renewed until August of 2021. So Stranger Things was like filming for the second time September 2020, almost a full year in advance of the license leaving. So it could be very likely that Dead by Daylight was allowed in on some of the information and themes that were happening for Season 4 and planning for this to be a Stranger Things chapter, but then they had to change gears. And I should mention that this is a video that I've wanted to make for a couple of weeks now, but I wanted to give people a chance to watch the new season of Stranger Things. So if you haven't watched the new season of Stranger Things, you maybe don't want to watch this video because it is going to be a little bit spoilery. When I look around the map at the Garden of Joy, there's just so many things that have some kind of a connection to this new season of Stranger Things Season 4. And I think, wow, maybe this really was supposed to be a Stranger Things chapter. When you look up in the sky, the hue of the sky looks like Vecna's world. You see a bunch of items floating in the air like in Vecna's world. The Creel house, while it isn't exact, it seems like it could be the Creel house. All of the growth on the ground, the vines everywhere on the Garden of Joy map look like kind of like the vines that you see running through the Upside Down in Vecna's world. The devs even put a quote on their socials about a secret attic that they don't know how to access in the Garden of Joy house, and we know that that's where Vecna lives, is up in the attic of this house. You can even make an argument that this is supposed to be Steve's BMW. Like, there's just a lot of things, but the one thing that was the real smoking gun here for me, on the map specifically, is that there is a crying baby in the fireplace on the Garden of Joy map, and that just seems like such a random thing to put into the game. Obviously, we know that Victor Creel is tormented by Vecna with misdeeds done earlier in his life. When he served in the war, he accidentally bombed civilians, killing children, and so he had this imagery thrust upon him of a crib in the fireplace with a baby crying, burning in the fireplace. So on the Garden of Joy map, when I hear this baby crying in the burning fireplace, I think, what the heck? It really has this Stranger Things season 4 vibe to it. But the first thing that made me think, whoa, what is going on here when I'm watching Stranger Things season 4 is the first kill that we see in there, Chrissy the cheerleader. She is killed in a way that looks so similar to Sadako's Mori that I think, whoa, was this supposed to be Vecna's Mori for Stranger Things chapter and they repurposed it for Sadako? Like, the similarity is startling in my mind. And of course, we have that one room that is entirely upside down in the Garden of Joy map with that grandfather clock at an angle on the wall, which is very symbolic of Stranger Things season 4. And so when you line up all these coincidences, you wonder if maybe they aren't coincidences and that this was supposed to be a Stranger Things chapter that had to be repurposed. Now, whether we were going to have the Flayed as the meat monster, as a killer, or Vecna, or possibly both with two different kinds of skill set powers, I don't really know. Maybe instead of Nightfall, survivors were supposed to get transported to the Upside Down every once in a while. Vecna being able to navigate the map through the lockers isn't a possibility for sure. But I don't know. This is all speculation. I don't really have any proof. I don't have a shred of proof. It's all circumstantial, coincidental evidence. But it just seems really bizarre to me that Dead by Daylight didn't have a licensed chapter for the anniversary, and that there are so many Stranger Things connections / coincidences. Even the origin of the Dredge being so similar to the Flayed as an amalgamation of people and animal parts, I just think, wow, this is so spot on towards the Flayed or / hospital meat monster of Stranger Things season 3 that it just really piques my curiosity about the whole situation. So that's all my personal thoughts on the current situation up until now. Again, I don't have any proof. It's pure speculation. Maybe it makes sense to you. If it does, expect to receive your tinfoil hat in the mail shortly. But so now what happened yesterday is one of the prominent data miners tweeted out that there were some leaks with imagery of non-disclosure agreement documents stating that Stranger Things was going to return to Dead by Daylight. And well, this was the best news. We were all rejoicing. We were high-fiving in the streets. It was like VJ Day all over again. Strangers kissing in the streets over Stranger Things. It was amazing. Something that we obviously all want. There's a petition out there created by Schmuckles that has 40,000 signatures roughly asking Netflix to bring Stranger Things back to Dead by Daylight. Invariably, every tweet that Dead by Daylight puts out, there are people pleading for the return of Stranger Things. So it's something that the community wants, but obviously it's up to Netflix. There's nothing that Dead by Daylight can do. I'm sure they still have the door open for the return if the opportunity presents itself. And so this information suggested that the opportunity had presented itself and that Stranger Things would be coming back by Christmas of this year, and that there would be a new chapter next year which would feature Vecna as the killer in a Stranger Things chapter 2. So I don't know if it was that we all wanted it so badly that we believed it, or the source was arguably the most reliable source that we've seen for leaks up until now, and I don't think they've really ever had any missteps to speak of. Everything that they've ever told us is coming seems to have come true. As far as I know, they're their win rate is pretty high. So I think everybody thought it was a slam dunk that this was happening, and we were so overjoyed by it. So supposedly this information is leaked materials from an employee of behavior who shared these images of non-disclosure materials about Stranger Things Chapter 2. One being a character model for Vecna, and the other, part 2, being all of the business legal agreement stuff between Netflix and Behavior agreeing to bring the chapter back. So several leakers / and or content creators had these internal documents distributed to them, and they looked it over and felt like it passed the smell test, so they took it as gospel and published the word that Stranger Things was returning. You may even believe that Stranger Things is returning because you may have seen some of this stuff. But then the red flags started to be raised. So the first red flag was the Vecna model itself. What was shown in the internal documentation as an initial mesh sculpt for what Vecna would look like in the Stranger Things chapter to come out next year. It turned out that this was actually a 3D model from the internet. So here it is here on Sketchfab, created by Nathan Mario. And so the thing about this is that this model was only published on Sketchfab here 9 days ago, but the internal documentation that was provided was dated June 10th. So if the documentation is from June 10th, how can it look exactly like this that was created, June 18th? So that was the first red flag there. So when questioned about this, the internal employee for Dead by Daylight who had distributed these internal documents had an explanation. They said that while all the businessy contract stuff was dated on June the 10th, they hadn't received the Vecna model until the 21st, which would have been after that Vecna model was made public on the internet. And they said that they found out that the Vecna model was actually a sting operation that Behavior was doing to find out who the leakers were, to see where the breach was amongst their employees who would leak this out and find out who they were. And they even said that they got emails from corporate talking to them about the whole situation. Okay, so that's actually a really smart idea if it's true. However, I think if you're the person doing the leaking and you find out that you leaked the thing that was supposed to get you caught as the leaker, are you going to continue to talk to people about this whole situation when you could potentially be facing getting sued into the Stone Age for violation of your NDA agreement? But that aside, let's talk about the other questionable parts of the internal leak documents. So the second half of the documents is what's called the businessy portion, the contract agreement between Netflix and Dead by Daylight. And while I don't believe them to be genuine, I'm not going to actually share them here just in case, because it says confidential, do not share on it. But I can take a couple of the very innocent, innocuous parts that make me raise an eyebrow and throw up even more red flags when I look at this part. Okay, so this internal document lists an agreement between two parties, Behavior Interactive Incorporated and Netflix Incorporated. And the first problem I see here is that the address for neither business is correct. First, let's talk about Behavior's address. The address that is listed here, 416 Boulevard de Maisonneuve West in Quebec. That's in Montreal, yes, but this is their previous place of business. They have not been in this building for 5 years. So if you were, writing legal documents, wouldn't you have your current address on there, not a building that you left 5 years ago for larger space? Same can be said for Netflix. Netflix actual headquarters is located in Los Gatos, California. And while they are incorporated in the state of Delaware to take advantage of what they call the Delaware loophole for taxes, that is not where they would do their legal business. Their legal affairs would not run through this setup incorporation in Delaware. It would go through California. Even the Delaware address isn't full. It just names a building. It doesn't even give the address of the building. So that's the first thing. The two red flags is neither address for either party is correct in my estimation. And now it also list, to give some legitimacy, these registration numbers for each business. So let's talk about those registration numbers. So the numbers shown here by each business name are supposed to be their LEIs. An LEI is a legal entity identifier. Entity, no pun intended. They're legal entity identifiers. A legal entity identifier, LEI for short, is a 20-character code used for all entities that enter into financial transactions. But what's listed here, these registration numbers, are not their LEIs. In fact, what they are instead is the location of the offices where each of these businesses applied for their LEIs. So it would be similar for you going to the passport office, getting a passport, you have your passport number, and when someone asks you for your passport number, you give them the number affiliated with the place where you got your passport. So this doesn't make any sense, these registration numbers. I can show you an example of that here that doesn't affect either of these parties involved. If you look at this here, you see this very same number, RA000072, associated with behavior, right? But no, it's actually used by many other businesses where they register for their LEI. See, this is Costco. This is their LEI right here. This is the thing that signifies who they are in a financial transaction, their legal entity identifier. But instead, what is listed for both of these businesses is their registration location. See that number there, RA000072? This is the office where Costco registered for their LEI. There are many other businesses that have used this registration to register their businesses. Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, and the list goes on and on. So that number that is shown there does nothing to signify them apart from any other business that registered at that location. It isn't their individual registration number. It merely signifies the place they would have registered for an LEI. So that's meaningless. Same thing for the Netflix one. That's a US registration office for that one. So it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't set them apart from the crowd. It just talks about where they applied for their LEIs and not their LEIs individually. So when you put it all together with the Vecna model being fake, the addresses aren't right on the business paperwork, and the LEIs aren't there, it all just sounds like it's just one big hoax that somebody has elaborately tried to put together documentation to make it look convincing and had some stumbling blocks along the way, which make it look very phony. So in my estimation, this is a fraud perpetrated on the community and a complete hoax, and it isn't real. Now, having said that, don't shoot the messenger, first of all. And that doesn't mean that Dead by Daylight isn't trying to get Stranger Things back in Dead by Daylight. I'm just saying that these internal leak documents, in my mind, certainly don't suggest any evidence that there's truth to it. So while we all would all love to see Stranger Things return, I don't believe any of this evidence is real, and it's all a sham. But I'm still holding out hope that Dead by Daylight is working on it and can get back the Stranger Things license. But that's all I have for you today. Let me know what you think about all this. What a roller coaster ride, huh? I warned you. I warned you. We all wanted it to be true. I was like, yeah, here we go. Oh, that's the other thing. So here's one other piece that convinced me initially that this was real. So they talked about how they're changing this prestige system, right? And that they said that once you prestige your characters to prestige levels 7, 8, and 9, that you will get charms related to the perks for that particular character. Well, now that the license has expired for Steve, Nancy, and Demogorgon, what do prestige 7, 8, and 9 Steve, Nancy, and Demogorgon get if their perks have been taken away from them and all the perks are made general population perks in the pool and they don't have any specific teachable perks anymore? What do they get? Nothing? Now, I saw that this question was asked many times on the forums and it was never answered, which made me think, maybe Dead by Daylight really is getting Stranger Things back, but they can't say so yet. So they're just ignoring these questions and not answering it Because otherwise, wouldn't you want people to know that they aren't going to get anything if they prestige that far and there is no reward? Maybe there really is a deal separate from all this fake document stuff that's coming in, and eventually we will have their perks back and they'll be able to get those charms. So I'm going to leave you with that glimmer of hope. Hope is a good thing. Hang on to your hope. Keep hope alive. So I thought that was very curious that they hadn't answered that question for anybody. So that made me think, haha, maybe they're going to get them back, which I would love it. I would love to see some more Stranger Things legendary skins for the characters in the game. And even bigger than that, a return of a new chapter of Stranger Things 2. Who knows? Who knows? Shoot for the moon. But today, my news for you is that I don't think any of the evidence is real. And we just have to keep on hoping. If nothing else, seeing the different gaming websites report on this, that Stranger Things may be coming back, can show how much interest and hype there is. Everybody can see how much interest and how excited everybody was when this news came out that they were returning. So hopefully, if Netflix is paying attention, maybe they'll think, maybe we made a mistake not renewing with Dead by Daylight and can still make it happen. So we'll just have to wait and see to see what happens. But that's all I have for you today. Let me know what you think about this whole situation. And as always, I appreciate the time that you spend here with me on my channel. So I thank you for that. And don't forget to take care of each other in and out of the fog. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. It's a Gen Rush life for us. It's a Gen Rush life for us. Set a hiding, we do gens. Set a randoms, we got friends. It's a Gen Rush life.